Friends gather round. It's budget season in Washington, which means it's time for the political equivalent of a root canal, but with more yelling and significantly less Novocaine. The House Republicans have unveiled their budget plan, and surprise, surprise, it's a greatest hits compilation of classic GOP strategies, massive tax cuts and deep spending cuts. Think of it as a reverse Robin Hood scheme, but instead of tights and a cool hat, they're rocking ill-fitting suits and a disturbing lack of self-awareness. The plan proposes extending the Trump-era tax cuts, the ones that were supposed to pay for themselves, but instead exploded the deficit. Yeah, those. We're talking a whopping $4.5 trillion in tax breaks, primarily benefiting corporations and wealthy individuals, because apparently trickle-down economics is like that zombie that keeps crawling out of the grave no matter how many times you shoot it in the head. Now, you might be wondering how they plan to pay for these generous tax giveaways. Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because they're proposing $4 trillion in spending cuts over the next decade. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of money. And you'd be right. It's like trying to fit a family of 5 into a clown car. Sure, you might be able to squeeze everyone in, but it's going to be a tight, uncomfortable, and frankly terrifying experience. So, where exactly are these deep cuts going to be made? Well, let's just say some programs are about to get a lot less love from Uncle Sam. The GOP plan takes aim at some familiar targets: healthcare, education, agriculture, and transportation. The Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees healthcare programs like Medicaid, is tasked with finding a cool $880 billion in savings. Now, savings is a funny word in Washington. It usually means kicking people off programs they rely on. Next up, education. The Education and Workforce Committee is being asked to trim $330 billion. Because apparently investing in the future of our children is less important than, say, giving another tax break to a billionaire who could buy and sell Congress several times over. Agriculture and transportation also find themselves on the chopping block, with proposed cuts of $230 billion and $10 billion, respectively. Farmers, truckers, and anyone who enjoys eating food or traveling on roads and bridges might want to brace themselves. Now, while the GOP budget proposes slashing funding for essential programs, it does shower some lucky recipients with extra cash. Defense and Homeland Security see significant increases in their budgets, with an additional $100 billion for the Pentagon and $90 billion for border security. Because nothing says fiscal responsibility like spending more money on weapons and walls while cutting funding for education and healthcare. But the real winners here are, you guessed it, the wealthy and corporations. The tax cut extensions disproportionately benefit those at the top of the income ladder, while the spending cuts will likely hit low-income Americans the hardest. Programs like Medicaid and SNAP, which provide a vital safety net for millions of Americans, are squarely in the crosshairs. The GOP plan also takes aim at clean energy, proposing to eliminate tax credits for renewable energy projects. So much for those jobs the president promised, I guess. Predictably, the House Republican budget proposal has sparked outrage from Democrats, who argue it's a giveaway to the wealthy at the expense of the poor and middle class. They point out that the plan would increase the deficit and lead to cuts in essential services. Even some moderate Republicans have expressed concerns about the depth of the proposed cuts. But here's the kicker. This budget is likely dead on arrival in the Senate. The upper chamber is controlled by Democrats, who have already proposed their own budget, which focuses on investing in infrastructure, education, and clean energy. So what's the point of all this? Well, it's all part of a political game. The House Republicans know their budget won't become law, but they're using it to signal their priorities and appease their base. It's a cynical exercise in political posturing, and the American people deserve better.